Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you how I finish up the ceiling with these wood slats as well as the recessed lights. So let me show you what I've done so far. So it's been kind of a process, and I've been going at around 2 slats a day. So this is like probably taking me about a month. I'm using the end cuts off 2x4s, and I happen to be working with I have another contract job where I cut these off, and this is a byproduct, but if that's what you want to do, this will work too. I would honestly recommend using something wider if you can. It will take you less time, but this with contours, it looks nice. I think it looks pretty nice, and I'm upcycling something which I also really like. I would recommend using, see how like it varies in thickness. I had to do that based on what I had for material, but this is probably the optimal width that I would recommend. That looks to me like about between an 1/8 and a 16th, because it flexes better, contours to the ceiling better, and yeah, and pick pieces that have straight of an edge as possible, so you minimize the in-between gaps. Like for example, I have some there. And let's see, and occasionally I will, let me bring you over here, I will have to make like filler pieces like towards the end. If it doesn't do so well with the curvature, then I would stick a piece of scrap. I'll just break a piece off from my pile here and then stick it in, because it'll get hidden and no one will be able to tell. In terms of propping it up, I'll get creative and use these. These are pallet slats. They work pretty well. And then sometimes I'll use these too. So this has been drying since last night. I'm ready to take this down, and that's looking good. Sometimes I've had to re-glue and glue it twice. For example, get that out of there. For example, this piece, I'll just glue that again and that'll be okay. Just like fix it as needed. So let me take the rest of these down. And you can see this is my propping method. I kind of like, it's a little bit tricky. You just kind of have to go to probably where the seams are, and you see I'm doing 2 at a time. Go to where the seams are, and then get the right height block, and then really just like smush it over and wedge it in. So this is like the reverse of what I would have been doing. So I would just like push, and then that brings it up to tension. Okay, let me just take the rest down and then keep going with this. So since I'm at the point where I want to put the recessed light in, that's what I'm doing now, symmetric to the other side of the hole. I'm taking this 2.5-inch hole saw, and it's a little bit tricky, but what I do is I line it up so that it would catch the foam first, and it won't mark up the wood as much. So after I drill to the depth that I want, then what I did was take the razor knife, scored it like you saw, and then take either a screwdriver or a piece of wood is what I took, just a scrap piece, to extract the foam out and make room for the light. So the hole's gonna be a little bit bigger, and that will work fine. The wood will cover it up. After that, as I go from the back towards the front, you have to do it, you have to think about how you do it so that you're not getting the wire in before you have to drill, because then you would cut the wire. That would be no good. But after you drill the hole, then you can do what I'm doing now, which is I'm using a torque tip driver. I wouldn't use a flathead or a Phillips, because that might be too pointy and damage the wire. And make sure you leave a little slack in there too. That just helps later if you need to adjust anything. And once you run it all the way through to the battery, it will be too tight. So now I'm doing the second one, the one that needs to go here. I left some slack, and same thing, I am squishing the wire. I just used a razor blade to cut a slit, I decided that I don't need anything else in terms of like a shrink wrap or cable cover, cable sleeve for this. The foam should do just fine in terms of vibration absorption. And here's another shot at the second hole. So you see I'm lining it pretty well. So this can be tricky because you really want it to line up well with the other side, or else it'll look a little funky. So that's why you see me checking, and then I carefully drill in. I did it a second time because I noticed that it should be a little bit more taken away from the wood, so that's why I did that. And then same thing again, just cut and carve out the excess, the thing that would be in the way, and then use a razor knife to cut the slit where the wire will go. Alright, so that last hole is drilled now, and it'll line up really well. And now it's time to decide where I'm gonna have my light switch. So I bought a light switch. So the 6-watt light wires, once all connected, will go into the adapter. And from the adapter, that will go to the switch. And then this switch, I just decided I'm going to mount right around here. So I think that makes sense. So as I'm climbing from the driver's side to my bed, I can reach kind of behind me and do on off. So I like that spot, which means all these wires, which these 3 from the left side, I've already routed. Same idea, right? So up in the foam, and then what I did was just in this little hole from the lights, and then I poked a hole through to here, and then here they are, ready for the next step. They need to be longer in order to reach all the way to the battery with the switch, with the adapter, everything else. So what's gonna happen is I have my wire, I have my connectors, and then that all will be in the next video when I do the electrical. But right now, I have already decided that all these wires will then get routed. I'll sneak it in there. Same with this fan wires. The wires from the fan will also sneak across. So I'll poke another hole through here. Come on over here. What did I do? How did I do that? I think I literally just used like a screwdriver and like a piece of, you could use fish tape, but I think I just use something pointy, like a regular screwdriver, go all the way, and then try to do the same thing from on this side, and that will work. And then I will bring all the wire on over to here, and then that will be good enough to finish up the slats. So I could keep going with the slats and then show you the rest of the slats, the process, how I cut it, how I glue it, etc. So let's go ahead and do that next. So here we are at the miter saw. What I do is mark it with a pencil line. Cut again. And there it is. Now I'm gluing. So with the pieces that I cut, I would apply the glue with the caulking gun. And since I've been doing 2 rows at a time, what I'll do is either use tape. Sometimes the pieces, if they're short enough, they'll stay put for a little bit. Other times I'll have to either use tape and temporarily put it up, put it in place, or use the piece of wood to prop it up temporarily and then adjust it when I get to final. And you see the lines on the foam. I drew those to help me figure out where I need to be exactly and line them up so that it'd be symmetric. Pieces sometimes fall like it did. That's okay. Just clean it up. It's not that bad. And just follow the pattern that I established already and keep going day by day. So it's taken me I've gotten faster, so now it'll take about an hour and a half to do 2 slats. But before, I think it was taking maybe 2.5 hours when I wasn't familiar with it. What ended up happening for me, actually, because I have a couple of hours and then downtime in between, I did a lot of research for electrical components and bought everything that I need. So that would probably work out for you too. Alright, by my eyeballs, these are now dead on. Took a little while, to get it right. And I gotta take that last piece off and trim off that little bit. Glue all of these pieces, and then we will be good to go. As you're doing this, if you are, this piece, my arms are tired. This part will take a little while, especially if you don't have as much experience. And I have some experience because I've been working construction. See this? This, I have found out, is the optimal amount of glue to have minimal squeeze out and maximum gluing. Okie dokie. So this piece, I did put glue on it, but I gotta do all the wires. So luckily I caught myself and I just scraped all the glue off. We're gonna run all the wires over there before we glue that piece. This piece I can do. And at this point, if you've been following along and doing this yourself, it's probably been a pretty daunting task. But don't worry. See how just from this side and how jaggedy that looks to this side and how lined up that looks? You really do get better as you practice. And I'm gonna push it up a tiny smidgen more. And then mark it here. On this side, I also follow the contour so that that would look pretty. And it's a wonderful example. See that gap? Now I've learned that what I need to do is just take my razor knife and then just cut that much off of there. And then this piece will fit perfectly. The darkness is starting to descend upon us, and I've gotten as far as I could for today. Need to leave that piece until I can do the wiring. And that's basically how I've been doing the ceiling slats. That's turned out pretty well. I bought the Great Stuff gap sealer to really glue the lights in. I may or may not use it. I'll show you. This end result hooks the lights pretty well. Lights themselves have the two prongs, and it's a pretty snug fit, like that. Pretty much hooks onto the back of the wood. That thickness slides right underneath the clip, which is nice. They spend a bit of time, and they look symmetrical and nice, and I'm happy with it. So that's it. That's the process for the lights and for the ceiling slats. Thanks for watching.